Welcome, everybody. I'm Donald Green. I'm the Assistant Director of Career and Internship Services. Most of my own background is in the private sector. I did corporate training for quite some time. Before that, I was the third generation owner operator of a family retail business here in Middletown called Greens. And then after all of that, I ended up at SUNY Orange, first in the continuing ed division and now in career services. So we're going to get into this resume business right now. One thing right off, there's two totally separate and distinct components to the resume. You of course have the content, the text, and you have the visual side, how to make it easy on the eye. I believe it's best to approach them separately. And we'll have more on that in a few minutes. But for now, let's take a look at how to do the resume. And in order to know how to write your resume, we need to understand how human resources people read resumes. Would anybody like to take a shot at what they think that 7.4 represents? If you would, you are welcome to say so in the chat if you think you know what it means.
How long it takes them to read your resume?
That is absolutely correct. 7.4 seconds on average. They, I guess they study people like Alex over and over again and compile thousands of results and then average it out. And it seems to average out to 7.4 seconds. So that's how much time they're gonna spend on the first pass. And they may be working their way through a pile of resumes. So, how long they spend what they're doing is they're deciding whether to keep reading or not. And they're deciding whether to put it in the rejected pile or not. So that first pass is obviously very important. You got to get through that first pass and not get deselected. Therefore, we want to start really, come out with some hard-hitting stuff right at the top, right at the beginning, which is why we recommend a profile as opposed to an objective. You got to get them interested. And guidepost number one is the way to do that is to start with a really strong profile. So you may be thinking, well, this is what I'd like to get. This is what I'd like to do. But honestly, they don't really care that much. What they care about is, why should I hire you? What do you bring to the table? So that's why you want a really nice personal branding statement, short and sweet and hard hitting. And how do you come up with that profile? By doing what we call the personal branding exercise. So this is the way to create a great profile and a great summary of qualifications. And we'll have more on that in a few minutes as well. But for now, what we want to remind you of is that this is obviously called a personal branding exercise, which brings us to one of the rules, the kind of accepted knowledge, which is don't put anything personal on your resume. That's a terrible idea, not to put anything personal on your resume. You're putting yourself at a significant competitive disadvantage because they want to know who you are, what you're all about, and you may be competing with other people who have resumes that do include all of that, and then you're not going to look as strong. So another rule that you hear a lot about is resume should be limited to one page. We also don't believe in that. If you just got out of college or if you're in college, it's possible that your resume may be one page. Well, we're going to show you the categories, the headers in a minute. And just to cover those headers can often lead you into 1.5, 2 pages. So you want to hit them hard at the start. By the way, that 1-page rule, as I say, you may be able to get away with it if you're at the very beginning stages of your career. But certainly, even if you're a student at SUNY Orange and you're going to graduate and you're an RN student, you're going to want to put your clinicals on there, your licenses. So it's definitely going to go over one page. If you're at let's say, Alex's stage of career where, obviously he's got some background and experience going for him. It's not even wrong to go into 3 pages. And Alex will tell you later about his situation, but certainly it wouldn't be wrong for Alex to have a 3-page resume. So we want to start with that profile, but after we do the personal branding exercise, the thing to do next, so the way we're starting the resume is personal branding exercise. Next thing we want to do is not necessarily the profile, but rather start with a summary of qualifications, which you will derive from looking at what you answered in terms of the personal branding exercise. After you have your summary of qualifications together, then do your profile, because your profile is really going to be a summary of your summary of qualifications. The third thing that you can include is significant accomplishments, and we'll say maybe on that one, because again, somebody at Alex's stage of career, he's going to have quite a number of significant accomplishments that he can put in there. If you're, on the other hand, a student or just at the beginning stages of your career, you may not. And that's okay. If you don't, then you don't put it. But we have adult learners who will put things such as went to school full-time, worked part-time, ran a household, raised 3 wonderful children, and maintained a 3.25 GPA. Indeed, that sounds like a significant accomplishment. It also sounds like somebody who would be appealing to hire for employers. So a 3.25 GPA is pretty good, but in light of all the other things that she was doing, it's really good. Okay, so those are the 3 first headers that you want to use. And then the next 2 are definitely going to be education and work experience or professional experience. So again, if you're a student, you're going to definitely put education first. If you're a recent grad, you'll probably put education first. If you've been out in the workplace for 3 or 4 years, you probably put professional experience or work experience. And how do you decide which one? Well, it's kind of very intuitive. If you've been bagging groceries at ShopRite or serving coffee at Dunkin' Donuts, we would call that work experience. If you are in the healthcare industry and you've been working in a hospital in any capacity, we would call that professional experience. Okay, so then we get down to the last 3. These are all optional. So remember, we said that we wanted to hit them hard on the first page, get their attention, get them interested in that 7.4 seconds. So therefore, with those qualifications, we may have 6, 8, 10 at the most bullet points. If you did that, but you have more qualifications, then you're going to add them here, and you can continue with your qualifications. This is also a very good place to put things like if you're bilingual, you could put that here, or other things that may be kind of secondary to the main qualifications, but good for them to know about. Additional activities, same kind of thing. So if, for example, you did a varsity sport, would not be wrong to include that. If you're an avid hiker or biker or whatever, jogger, not wrong to include that. These are things that you definitely can put in there. If you did volunteer work or do volunteer work in the community or at your church or synagogue or mosque or whatever, again, you can put that in there under volunteer experience, not a mistake. Okay, so those are the headers that you can use. And then very good to start sentences with action verbs. And one of the reasons you want to do that is because you want to be accomplishment driven versus job function driven. Of course, you can put in things that you did as job functions, but you also want to put things in there that you accomplished. So that's why you're going to do that. You can obviously just Google and YouTube this stuff and probably get 200 action verbs. But that's true, by the way, of everything we're talking about here. Google and YouTube are your friends. So that's it for the content side. Before we move on to the visual side, any questions? If so, you're welcome to flag Dana or put them in the chat. And Alex and I would be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Okay, we do have a question from Catherine. What is your favorite or most experience here? What if you have more experience here? Maybe I can unmute Catherine to ask her question.
Sure,
Give me
go
a
ahead.
second. Just do that. Catherine, I'm going to unmute you for you to ask the question, okay?
Okay.
There you go.
All right. So my thing is with a resume, if you're saying put more of the words up front and I like the idea that you said it's accomplished driven versus job just driven. So if you'd have a lot of spaces within your jobs and your jobs are not, and in that space you did more volunteer stuff. So an example, my fast version is I worked, I was home for 17 years, but I homeschooled. Now I'm back doing simple things like you were saying, shop right, this or that. How do I so we would be driven more towards your accomplishments, even if it wasn't job related?
Okay, well, you're going to definitely want to use both. And I'm going to let Alex jump in after I
don't need like my personal answer per se, but just generally for people who have gaps.
So generally, what you're talking about is very common. We certainly see lots of people who had exactly the background and experience that you had, which was you're in the workplace, then you got married, et cetera, whatever, raised a family, were a stay-at-home mom, and then wanted to get back into the workplace. That is indeed very common. And that's another reason we kind of like those headers, because you get to say summary of qualifications as opposed to having to show the chronological work history. You're going to show your chronological work history, but let's show them that after they already know what you're all about and what you bring to the table and some of the things you really accomplished. Your summary of qualifications can include things that you did back in the day when you were working, and they can include things that you did more recently, such as that example that I used. There was another point I wanted to make on that. Yeah, you can, again, you're going to do that personal branding exercise, and that's going to be the whole package, the whole shebang. So anything that comes out of that, it's all fair game. Doesn't have to be something you did at work. Doesn't have to be something you did as a mom or raising your kids or whatever. It's just whatever comes to mind when you do that. That's what you're going to use. And I'm going to defer to Alex to see if he has anything to add to that.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree with Don's statement. I think that summary up top is the perfect place to kind of put that, gap in between, but also mention that you're volunteering, and you can put that under activities or that other stuff at the end. But it's always good, because that's going to be the first thing that as a hiring manager, I'm going to look at is that, executive summary, that summary about yourself, kind of what you've been doing the past couple of years or what you're best at. So that kind of gap in there, I would mention, and then I would go into the rest of the resume and see, okay, just because there was a little gap, which she explained, she's still qualified for the position or at least an interview. So I completely agree with what Don said.
Yeah, we're not we're not concerned about certain things that you may feel that you really should be concerned about, such as gaps in employment. If you were home raising kids, we don't really consider that a gap in employment. We consider that you left the workplace for a very good reason, and then you're coming back. Again, sometimes we work with older candidates who are very concerned about their age. Well, age is not really so much of a problem. What is a problem is if your skills aren't current. So if you're concerned about your age, I would highly recommend that you get your tech skills really up to speed. Just skill up and be really sharp, and then that's not going to be an issue.
Yeah.
Okay.
Don, we have a couple of other questions I think that might be good segues here for you. One is it a good idea to put things like club president during college on your resume in terms of showing leadership? And another is from Antonia about students who do volunteer work in addition to their academic qualifications, including that as well.
Absolutely. It's all good. It's all good. So definitely, and actually sometimes it wouldn't be a mistake to have another header called leadership or leadership experience. And that's something you can include. But in any event, absolutely, you're going to put things like that on your resume. So yeah, all that belongs on your resume.
Yeah, for sure. And you'd be surprised how little you actually see of that stuff. I mean, to go above and beyond and to volunteer and to be active in the community and to be a president or a club leader goes a very long way when I see that on a resume.
And there you have it from somebody who reads resumes and hires. So that kind of confirms it. Anything else, Dana?
Just to follow up, one follow up from Antonia. Do you have to mention every single job you have under professional and work experience?
Definitely not. And it depends how far back you're going. So again, if you're an adult applicant and you've got 20 years of work history, well, it's not so relevant what you did when you were 18 if you are now 45 or whatever. So yeah, use your own judgment on that. Rule of thumb is you definitely want to go back, let's say 10 years, but after that, it's iffy. You know, you can include it if it helps you, and you can leave it off if it doesn't. Alex?
Yeah, I agree with that. I think going back at least 10 years is a good number.
Okay. Anything else, Dan?
No, that's all.
Okay. Well, I will hustle along here so we can get it turned over to Alex. So now we're at the visual side. And the operative words here are clean and simple. So the example that you see there, again, a lot of white space. I'm just showing you the top to kind of emphasize what we want to see first. You want to have a less is more kind of attitude. You see, you don't want to be content heavy. And what you see there is a nice oversized name, little color accents, nice headers. You see the headers are in bold caps. That's a good thing to do. So that's an example of a pretty clean setup for a resume. As we said, the content, you want to get your content in excellent order before you start worrying about the visual side or templates or anything like that. Get your content really straight. And the best way to do that is as a Word doc. You can even make your resume a Word doc if you want, but you're going to have a lot more freedom and flexibility if you start like that and then plug in a template or anything else later. So you're going to start with your name and contact info. You can include your street address. We used to always include street addresses. Nowadays, some people, due to how crazy things are out there, don't want to put their address on. That's perfectly fine. Just out of curiosity, how many people who are attending this have a LinkedIn account? You can just say yes in your chat if you do. Any yeses, Dana?
A handful, yes.
Handful, yes.
Yep.
Okay. Well, if you don't, no problem. But if you do, you definitely want to put your LinkedIn URL up there as well in your contact info. And you definitely want it to be a custom URL. You don't want that big long one that they give you when you sign up. And LinkedIn happens to have great tutorials and guidebooks and such on YouTube and on their own site. So you can definitely include that, and they'll help you do that. So again, the headers, bold, oversized, bold caps is good. You want these things to stick out. These are a couple fonts that seem to be popular. Again, you can Google this stuff, but Times New Roman has been going out of business on resumes for the last 20 years. It's like every year, people in the business start telling you, well, don't use Times New Roman because that makes you look like, you're passé. But yet, and Alex can, comment on this as well. But we see, I would say, a very large percentage of resumes still in Times New Roman. It's not necessary, but it's certainly acceptable if you want to use it. Color accents are great. This is another good example. Use of color in a reasonable manner, nice and clean, nice white space, very simple, looks really good. This is what you don't want to do. This is use of color in an over-the-top manner. You don't want to try to be flashy or cute, it's probably not going to work. And this is an actual resume, by the way, and so is this. But they probably will not work. In fact, you could say almost definitely that will get you rejected right away. However, if you do want to be creative, there is nothing wrong with doing what's called an infographic resume. This is an example of one. You can expand on what you include in your traditional resume. You can put in testimonials, which are great. I mean, nice to have a little section of an infographic with testimonials, 2 or 3 people saying great things about you. It shows initiative if you take the time to do one. I use this as an ace in the hole. If somebody's having trouble getting placed or I'm having difficulty getting somebody a job, I'll say, let's do an infographic resume. And that's always a big competitive advantage. So the order of events is resume, LinkedIn profile, and if desired, infographic resume, which is in addition to, not instead of. There's another infographic. As you can see, affords you a great deal of flexibility. Put a headshot in there if you want. Here's another one. Again, clean and simple, and these really work well. By the way, there's a great person in this business named Hannah Morgan. She has a company. You can find it at careersherpa.net. Her company is Career Sherpa. She is a real master of infographic resumes and provides a bunch of free templates on her website that you can utilize. Just a quick comment before we wrap up on applicant tracking systems. There's a great deal of stuff out there, instructional material on how to get through the applicant tracking system and how to match the keywords that they put in the job posting to the keywords in your resume and all that. Your best bet is you're much better doing a job search that is not geared toward job boards and job postings as your primary job search tool. It's a terrible way to try to get a job because your odds of getting hired are, well, probably something like 1%. Let's say they get 100 resumes. All things being equal, your odds of getting that job are 1%. So that's not very good odds. On the other hand, if you do a networking focused job search, you got great odds. So, you know, hiring people like Alex would much rather get a referral from somebody they trust or a trusted, employee than have to trudge through a big pile of resumes and do all those interviews. So a lot of times there exists what's called the hidden job market. And these are jobs that never get posted. So you definitely don't want to cut yourself out from those opportunities. So a great way to get a job is networking. Informational interviews are another great tool. Again, Google informational interviews and learn all about them. National stats are for every 12 informational interviews you do, you get 1 job offer. My own experience at SUNY Orange, I would say it's more like for every 5 or 6, you get 1 job offer. So again, that's so much better odds than doing job boards. I would be happy to answer questions, but I would suggest that we kind of move along to Alex's portion first, and then Alex and I can field your questions at the end.
Perfect. Don, could you just reiterate that site? Was it Career Sherpa?
Yes, careersherpa.net.
I'm putting it in the chat for everyone so they can take a look. That was one of the questions. All right.
Okay, great.
We want to turn it over and introduce Alex.
Yes, so I believe that would be Jen, if she has a few things to say for introduction for Alex.
Thanks so much, Don. That was a really great, great presentation. Thanks everyone for taking time out of your day today to join us for this workshop. My name is Jen DeAndrea, and I'm the Director of Alumni Relations at the SUNY Orange Foundation. And just to let you know that I'm going to be following up with everybody via email right after, not immediately after, probably tomorrow, with an email just with a link to a recording of this presentation, so you guys have it, as well as a link to a survey and all the PowerPoints. So please check your email when you can to look at that. We really would love it if you guys could take a second to fill out that survey. That really helps us plan future ones and make it really, accessible to you. And we really value that feedback. So if you could just take a couple minutes, click on that link, answer just a couple questions, and that would really help us out a lot. And then, that's really about it. I thank you again for coming. I'm going to introduce Alex. Alex is a 2012 alum of SUNY Orange. His degree is in business administration. Right now, he's got double duty, and I'm sure he'll tell you a little bit about that himself, but he's the Director of Finance and Human Resources at Hemp Farms of New York, as well as the Investor Relations Representative at Orange County Partnership. So welcome. Thanks so much, Alex, for joining us, and we look forward to hearing you.
Thank you so much, Jen. Great job, Don. Thank you all for having me. So a little bit more about myself. So currently I'm the HR Director of Finance at the Hemp Farms of New York, a CBD hemp operation in New Windsor. I read a ton of resumes, so I've got a little bit of experience there. But after SUNY Orange, I went over to University of Buffalo, graduated with my 4-year degree there in finance and marketing. So, after I graduated from college, went over to economic development, did a little bit of everything there, a lot of finance, some HR, some investor relations. So it was a small organization, so you really had to wear many hats, but now focus mostly on the resumes and HR side of that. But to get to the point, with resume writing, I really like to look at it as more of a piece of art. So I like to kind of picture these as, if it's too sloppy, I'm not going to look at it very long. If there's things that aren't, aligned, or periods where they're not supposed to be or where they should be, I really like to keep everything nice and neat. So I want to go over a little bit more of the basics that I feel like people just need to fully grasp and understand, and know that they kind of need to be on the resume to get to me to look at your resume longer than 7 seconds. So one is just avoiding spelling and grammatical errors. I see it so often where they're using the wrong tense or the wrong there. And it irks me, and it kind of makes me just feel like they're not putting as much time in, or they don't care about the position or things like that. So really just go through your resume, make sure that everything is spelled correctly. You're using your right there's, you're using the right tenses, because you'll see if you're going from a past position, you want to use your past tense. So was organized, was taught, planned, received. If you're currently at that position, you want to use managed, organized, use your tenses correctly. That goes a long way. Also, have people review your resume. So right off the bat, when I was coming out of college, I wasn't the best at writing resumes. I definitely had probably half a dozen people look at my resume before I would send it out to different organizations, jumping on Indeed, ZipRecruiter, all of that. So if you have someone available, I'm also more than happy to help as well. But if you have someone that can review your resume, I definitely recommend it. It goes a long way. They'll probably catch something small that you might have missed. And it's definitely a great thing to do. So ask for help if you need it. It's always there. But one thing, actually, I just got a resume today. It was sent as a Word document. So typically I would never recommend sending it as a Word document. If you're emailing a resume, convert it over into a PDF first. That will help preserve the format. So this resume came over, the title was all disaligned. It was all over the place. His education wasn't lined up. And I feel like it was all because he sent it over as a Word document, and maybe he was working in a different version of Word and I was in another one. So really, when you're going to send your resume, create a PDF. It helps just preserve everything lined up. And it's easy to do. If you don't know how to do that, just go under File, Export, create PDF/EXP, and then it'll create the PDF version for you. So whenever you're sending out resume, please turn it into a PDF. Word documents, typically the format will get messed up and it won't look right. Also, labeling your resume. So when you're going to label your resume, it makes it so much easier for people like myself to go back and find you if it's labeled correctly. So if I say, John Doe, I liked his, You know, if I want to go back and search for John Doe on my file that I'm working on, I'll have it set up where it's first name, last name, and then resume. So when you're saving your resume, save as, do your first name, last name, resume, and that will make it a lot easier for people to locate you when they're looking back. Quantifying things. So this is one thing that I cannot stress enough. If you're really good at what you do, tell them, let them know that you did very well. So let's go to like a sales position. So if you were, let's say 50% over your sales quota, make sure you're putting those numbers in there. So if I see, you know, for the past 5 months, this employee or a potential employee was over 50% of their sales quota, bold that, make it look noticeable. So that's something, that a fact that you want to quantify. Anything that you did really well and you can actually put in terms of numbers, put it in there, because painting the picture is a lot easier when you give me some numbers to look at. So if you won awards or anything of that sort, you know, best salesperson for the past 7 months, put that in there, highlight it, bold it, do anything that you can to make your real accomplishments stand out, because it makes it easier. Again, you have my attention for probably 7 seconds. If I'm not seeing things that really stand out, I'm not really going to continue to look at it. So anything like that, that's big, put in bold. It'll make it that much easier for me to notice and continue on with the resume. A little bit more about references. So some people always put their references on a resume. I don't think you need to anymore, or I would recommend not doing it. When it comes to time, we'll ask for your references, but it's always good to have your references lined up. So find that 3-4 people that you can say, you know, either I worked with and they know how talented I am, or they, you know, are a good friend, we went to college together, they saw that I got straight A's. Those are the references that you want to have ready for when the employer asks. So, you know, to have your 3, 4, 5 possible references lined up will definitely help when that time comes, but no need to put the references on the resume. You're just wasting good space. And, you know, as Don mentioned, the past like 2-3 jobs that I've had were never off of, you know, the Indeed, the ZipRecruiter. It was really getting out there and selling myself. So networking, I would say, is huge as well. If you have opportunities to get involved in your community through volunteer experience, or just to go to networking events, these are people that you're always, you know, selling yourself to. You know, if you're out there just graduating from college, go to these events. You know, as Don mentioned, a lot of these good jobs that are out there aren't the ones that they post online. They're kind of, you know, these kind of secret jobs that you're actually looking for a good reference from. So when there is an opportunity, they'll think of you. But networking is so essential, and it's always a good time to get out there and beef up your resume. If your resume is not the largest right now, getting involved, doing volunteer experience, putting that on your resume definitely goes a very long way. Anytime that I'm looking at a resume and there's volunteer experience that's recent, and they did this, they helped their community, they're a part of a club, those things go a very long way. And to keep furthering your education, if you graduate from SUNY Orange and you want to get a certificate in the similar field, certificates always look great. That shows that you're a person that's out there, go-getter, really just trying to always put your best forward and keep working hard. So if there's educational opportunities that you can take advantage of, I would highly recommend also doing that. But keep beefing up your resume. Don't stop learning. Those are things that you'd like to see on a resume. If you are posting on sites like Indeed and those ones, really take some time to put your resume on there, because I noticed a lot of times that if I'm on Indeed as an HR recruiter and I'm looking through resumes, the format really does get horrible when you're on there. So if you can, check the format, see if they can do a preview, make sure everything's lined up nicely, it's a good font. Also, if you can, upload the PDF version just as a backup. So if the font does come out strange and I don't like it, I can at least jump into the PDF and get your full version. So always on those sites, upload a PDF, or just make sure that it looks nicely, because I see so often it's just cluttered, jumbled, it's a very, very hard eyesore on those websites sometimes. But also, what I've noticed a lot lately is people don't tend to use cover letters as often as they should. I think a cover letter just shows that you're doing that little extra step to kind of get me to look at your resume a little bit more. So even if it is just a short little blurb about who you are or why you're interested in this position, I really do take that into consideration. Definitely if it's an entry level to mid-level job, if you have a cover letter that goes up and beyond, and I will definitely put a little more attention into your resume when I see that cover letter. And they're not terribly hard to do. It is a little difficult when you do have to tweak them to every job if you really want to stand out, but I would say it's worth it. Again, Google is your friend. Just Google, samples or whatever of a cover letter, of a resume, and they can usually provide very good ones that will help you. But yeah, I mean, overall, I think just kind of working on those basics helps a lot. And to make it look like a nice piece of art instead of just a jumbled maze of words makes it that much easier for the HR recruiter to look at it and to kind of comprehend and understand why you're applying to the position. So really just focus on those small little details, get people to review your resumes. If you're posting online, make sure the format looks good. And yeah, I think if you do all those things and do what Don said, you should be in very good shape of creating a very good resume. And again, I'm happy to help. If you want to send over a resume, I can do any tweaks or make any suggestions. But I think it's focusing on those little things, following the rules that Don displayed, and then just making sure that you keep everything nice, neat, and easy for people to understand and read. And those will be some very, very helpful hints. But I'm sure there might be some questions that Don and I can take care of.
Nice job, Alex.
I appreciate it.
Excellent. Yeah, and this is, you're listening to somebody who reads resumes all the time and hires all the time. So there you have it. Just one thing that Alex said that prompted me to, when he said about the references, not putting them on there, not only that, but you don't have to say references available upon request. Believe me, they know that. So if they want your references, they'll let you know. And make sure you're communicating with your references about what you are saying in your personal branding statement and your profile and that kind of thing, so that they can reinforce what you're saying about yourself.
Exactly, for sure.
Dana, any questions?
So, hi, Don, it's Jen. Dana had to step out, so asked me to just kind of take over some of the questions that I see that are coming in. Somebody asked, how old should all of the information in your resume be? Should high school be listed?
I mean, I typically wouldn't. If you graduated from college, I would think, the most up-to-date education is better to put on there. High school typically wouldn't be needed if you're past college. So I just saw you graduate from SUNY Orange. That's all I would need to understand that you have a good education, and then work experience and your summary and all that great stuff would just extend that a little bit further.
Anything else, Jen?
All right, one just came through. If you are further along in your career, how many years should be included in your resume?
I'm going to defer to Alex on that since he reads them, but my own input would be, there's not a set rule. I think Alex and I both mentioned something like 10 years is a kind of rule of thumb. If it's within 10 years, you definitely want it on there. But then if you've got a 12, 15, 20, 30, even 40-year work history, it's a whole different ballgame.
Yeah, I would agree. And, again, sometimes there could be a candidate that's been at the same position for 12 years. but was in a completely different position prior to that. So if you've been in the same career for, 12 years at the same position, nothing wrong with that. It shows that you're a great dedicated worker. But possibly to show the previous jobs, if you've been in that one for a long time, would be helpful to just get a better understanding of what you've done prior. So, but 10 years is typically, like Don said, a good rule of thumb.
That sounds great. So another question that we got that came through from Luke: if you got an award in high school, should you put that on your resume? So things that you did in high school, maybe?
Well, that's a great question, because, if you were the captain of a football team that won the state championship, that's something you definitely want on your resume. Again, reflecting hard work, leadership, all kinds of good things. So it depends what it is, but definitely, if in doubt, put it on there. The question is, do you think it's going to help you? If it's going to help you get interviewed, then definitely put it on there. And again, I would defer to Alex for anything else.
Yeah, I mean, especially Don gave a great example, captain of the football team, stuff like that, especially for, if it's a time frame. So if we're talking, you graduated high school in the past, 3, 4, 5 years, I would say it's a good, reference note, especially if you have extra room on there, put the high school experience as well, especially if it's something very impressive.
Yes, thanks. And just as a follow-up, Luke wrote he was referring to an award that he was given from the Attorney General of New York. So I think that's pretty substantial, maybe to include. So just another follow-up question to the previous one, when you were talking about the 10 years. What if you had a job, your job that you're working at right now, you've been at for 10 years? Do you go back further than those 10 years?
Yeah, I mean, I would like to see, just because then it could get a little confusing. Maybe I think that you didn't have a job before that one. So if you were at that one for 10 years, I would probably like to see at least the one before that as well, just to help me, get better context of where you've been and what you've done before that.
And just another one, do you add dates of employment to a resume? Yeah,
absolutely. I think always painting that picture, making what you've been doing as clear as possible with dates, either if it's just the month and year to whatever month and year you were there. Paint that picture for us, help us understand what you've been doing, what your education looks like, what that time frame was. All of that helps just to understand how long you've been with the company. Give as much context as possible whenever you can.
All right, great. One more, I think, so far. How do you compensate for long time between jobs?
Go ahead, Alex.
If you had
Yeah, I mean, so if there's a long period between jobs, we always like to hope that there's a reason why. And again, that's something that maybe you can elaborate more in the summary or cover letter. If you were, traveling or raising kids, like the good examples before, that's stuff that we will absolutely take in consideration. But in between jobs, yeah, if you can put something of why there was that period, do it in your summary up top. Or if you're sending a separate cover letter, let us know, what happened or why there was that gap. And then that helps us go and explore the rest of the resume for sure.
I remember I was helping somebody. She was an RN, graduating as an RN. And I could see she was really nervous and, kind of really wound up when she came in to do the resume and we met. And I was kind of wondering why she was like that. And, we sort of had a very normal routine appointment. And then we got to the point where I found out why she was so wound up. And she was saying, listen, I've got a real problem. What's that? Well, after I graduated from college originally, I kind of really got lost for a couple of years. and I was just bartending and waitressing and things like that. If that's your worst problem on your resume, believe me, that's not that big a deal. And you're just going to tell the truth, and you're going to say graduate from college, and then and you can so choose to put those jobs in there or not, depends. But I think people like Alex are not going to be too upset if they see a period of 2 years where you're kind of maybe a little lost to getting yourself together, and now you're an RN. So that's okay.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we get more upset when we see resumes that were just disorganized. The little errors, the simple things that you make mistakes on, those things make us a little bit more upset. But again, like Don said, those time gaps, if you can explain it, or if you're doing something, just do your best to let us know what it was, and then we can, move on from there, and hopefully, the rest of the resume is great.
Great. A question from Catherine that Don, you may be able to help out with. If we needed help starting a resume, is there some place to get more detailed help, even if fee-based?
Well, I'd be happy to charge, but that would be a conflict of interest because I'm getting paid by the college to do exactly what you're looking for. So yes, that's a service that we provide at the college. We're a community college. Part of our mission is to serve the community. And so for that reason, among other reasons, you are welcome to avail yourself of our services without a fee. And of course, we'd be happy to help you. And my contact info is on the PowerPoint, and Jen's going to be sending that to you.
Yes, and I just added it in the chat for anybody who wants to take it right from there. That looks like it's about it. Oh, no, sorry. Here they are coming through. There's, what if your previous job has nothing to do with the job you are applying for?
Go ahead, Alex.
Yeah, I mean, again, I think that would come down to the summary and if you're doing a cover letter, just kind of explaining what interests you or what, experience you do have related to that. The previous job doesn't always matter if you can give me a reason why you're interested in this position. That just happened today. I got a resume. The guy was in construction management for over 25 years, and he was looking for more of like a sales-based position. And it didn't seem like he had any sales experience, but he loved the industry. So that's someone that I would consider just based on passion, and at least have a conversation with. But if your previous job doesn't have anything related to it, explain why you're applying, either in a cover letter or the summary. If you're looking to shift your career, if you're looking to possibly go back to school, and work with this job as well while educating yourself more about the career, just explain that. And it's something that, we can definitely, it makes sense. If you let me know why you're switching careers or why you're interested in this industry, that helps, us go on further and then see that, all right, you're a great dedicated worker. You've done this, you volunteered, you've been a part of so much stuff. Just based on the fact that you haven't been in this industry, or it's not something that you're an expert at, wouldn't let me, someone like myself, rule you out.
Yeah. Again, I think this is a lot more common than you may think. We see an awful lot of resumes like that. I meet with an awful lot of people in the course of my work who are changing careers. Sometimes people are on their third or fourth career, not at all unusual. And I think Alex will probably bear this out, that a lot of times employers are most interested in the soft skills, the transferable skills, communication skills, working as a member of a team. And a lot of times employers will tell me, just get me somebody who gets it. I can teach them the hard skills. I can teach them the tech side of it, but I want somebody who gets it.
Yeah.
Great. So another question, do you know if employers still use Metafax machines to pull certain words or phrases in a resume that employers are looking for a job that you're applying for?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of the very large corporations still use that style. just because they get thousands upon thousands of resumes a day. And they typically probably use those machines just to pull out the best candidates based on what, experience wise. Smaller companies that you're looking at, we still do it the old fashioned way. We go through every resume, see what the qualifications are. We spend a little bit of time per resume, but that's a great question. Those big ones, yeah, sometimes putting those keywords into your resume might actually help out.
All right, I think this is our last question. Should the summary be in paragraph form or bullet form or on the cover page?
Well, if you're talking about summary of qualifications, I would say almost 100% of the ones that I've seen and people I've worked with are bullets. So there's 6 or 8 or 10 bullet points. Again, Alex, you can chime in.
Yeah, I've seen actually a little bit of both, where it's a little portion summary, maybe 3 sentences, and then kind of bullet more into the relatable fields or experience that you have, and why that resume, would kind of stand out to me. So that's, to do a combination of both won't hurt. If you're doing a cover page, a cover letter, typically, always that's just going to be kind of a paragraph format. Putting together your qualify, your why you're applying for the position, and what experience you have to kind of back it up. But that's a good question. Yes, I've seen a little bit of both. So either a summary or bullets or a combination would also work.
Great. So that's about the end of the time that we have here today. So I just want to thank everybody again for logging on and participating. Again, as well, Don is here for the for any kind of additional assistance that you guys might need. Please take advantage of it. And that's about it. I hope you guys had a great time, and thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.